Welcome to the show, PXF Paranormal Files, Volume 1. Today we have author Nicole Strickland. Just some quick channel news. We have the Lauren Lepre, actor, director, horror expert, PXF correspondent interview tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be switching up to an Eastern because Lauren is out of Pennsylvania. Check out the Dark Military Rogue short film on Lauren's YouTube now, which is Average Superstar Films. We will get the link to that posted. But more importantly, we have finally got our Halloween paranormal special back. You know, Gaz and I like to do this topic every now and again, and we finally got back with a resident paranormal expert and author, as well as involved in some investigation around San Diego. So without further ado, we will bring on today's guest, author Nicole Strickland.
Definitely.
Hey, Nicole, how you doing?
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
No worries. Welcome to the channel. It's Planet X Filmworks. So we do a lot of true crime, do a little bit of everything. We're kind of behind the scenes, just talking about some different things with you there. So we'll bring some flavor from my end, and then definitely, as I said, as Nicole and I were talking off the air, you know, I'm fully in tune with the New England paranormal where I'm from, but now I'm going to have Nicole bring me up to speed on San Diego paranormal where I'm at. And I'm not a complete amateur, but I'm still in this department. So, you know what I mean?
And the Queen Mary as well, popular on both sides of the pond. So
for sure, we'll get to that.
Talk about that.
Yeah. For sure,
that's my second home, y'all.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, no, I've actually worked with Dave and the other San Diego paranormal group, and I know they've talked a lot about the Queen Mary. So I have done some investigations of them up at Presidio Park and some of the other parks there. So
nice.
Let's get first and foremost, Nicole, just let everybody know where to find you and find your work before we get started.
Sounds good. Yeah. So my website is authorNicoleStrickland.com, and then my team's website is San Diego ParanormalResearch.com. It needs to be updated. I will admit it. New design, all that stuff. And then I have a little small website again that I'm reworking the design on, and that's actually a blog about the Queen Mary. So spiritedqueenmary.com. Again, I'm going to be redesigning it and adding new features to that. And then, of course, social, Facebook. My main handle is at Nicole D, as in dog, Strickland. And then our team's handle is at our acronym, which is SDPRS. Instagram, author Nicole Strickland. Twitter or X now, right?
Yep.
I know, right? At SDP. It's crazy.
Still doesn't work.
It's funny. When I go and I'm expecting to see the little blue bird, and I'm like, oh, where's Twitter?
Yeah.
Where's
where's the icon? Where did it go?
Yeah.
Yes, it's X now. Okay, so that is so Twitter is at SDPRS Nicole. So
for sure, and just for sure, yeah, definitely check her out on that. Of course, her books are on Amazon, so check those out there. Just a little background on Nicole. She's the founder and director of the well-respected San Diego Paranormal Research Society. Since 2011, she's co-hosted the Spirits of the Adobe tours at the iconic Rancho Buena Vista Adobe. I'm definitely going to have some questions on that.
Yeah.
She serves as the California coordinator for the Ghost Research Society and is also a consultant to various other investigative groups, including the American Spectral Society. So, make sure you go check out the books. I was reading the descriptions. It looks like you got good reviews. I definitely want to the San Diego hauntings that definitely struck out to me. So definitely check that out, guys. Give her some support. Give her some follows.
That was a fun one to write. San Diego is just chock full of just so many historical locations and stuff. So it was fun to write.
Gets me right at home. You got anything else you want to lead off with, guys? You want me to get right into these questions?
No. Let's dive straight in, man.
Let's talk.
Let's do it.
So right off with the Spirits tour at the Adobe. I saw you guys closed down for COVID, but it looks like you're possibly back open. I was just wondering the status.
So that's true. So how that came about, it was in 2010, and so we did an actual investigation of the property up in Vista, California. So those that don't know where Vista is, it's about 25 minutes north of San Diego. So it's sandwiched in between Oceanside to the west and then San Marcos to the east. And so there's two old land ranchos up there. One is the Rancho Guajome, and then the other is the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe. It's lesser known, more difficult to find. It's not like the Whaley House in Old Town where it gets a lot of foot traffic. So how that came about in 2010, we did an investigation on the property, and then I worked with the city of Vista to establish these fundraising tours, which are actually paranormal investigation tours. We run it like a paranormal investigation. So we've been doing those since 2011 up until the pandemic. And then with the pandemic, they shut down. So they're going to resume. I just don't know at
Sure.
what point. But it's cool though, because it's a fundraising tour. So the money goes right back into the Adobe. So
Yeah, that's awesome. No, when I was going through your stuff, I mean, for one, you had a lot of resources there, so I totally recommend anyone checking out Nicole's website, just getting familiar with her work. But that really struck out to me, just the pictures of the building, and I'm like, this place looks awesome. I was like, right off the rip, definitely keep me in mind when that opens up.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'll let you know when it reopens, and then you can join us one night. That would be awesome. We've actually, and it's a good thing when it comes to paranormal investigations. Sometimes, with teams, you only get a 1 hour or a one night investigation and that's it. Well, really, does that tell you much? You might have some experiences, you might capture some audio or photographs, but having tenure at a site like we have with the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, or like myself with the Queen Mary, it really gives you more of an idea of what's going on. So case studies actually is, preferred. So yeah,
you can build that longer term relationship then, and see if things do manifest, rather than, because it's always the case, you go there for a day or two, nothing happens, or you maybe catch something small and it's like, man, I can't get here, say, until next month or whatever.
That's so true. That's so true. So
that's the only problem with those. And I saw your interview with Lon, Nicole, and you guys briefed over this topic of the TV playing it up for the camera, more entertainment side of the television shows, because they only have that TV show for like the shoot for the night. So it's like nothing really happened. I literally seen one where a kid was running down a hallway with a camera, and he's like, boom, like that with his face. He's like, oh my God, I just got slapped. But he was smiling and laughing while he said it. It's like, dude, if you got slapped, like, I don't think you would be so happy about to be on camera. So it's like, again, they're under these deadlines, and then, they don't come up with much, and it just comes off forced.
Yep.
At the end of
the day, it's ratings, and I know, actually, I'm sure you guys do as well. I know a lot of the people on these shows, they're great people, but but there's pros and cons. You get to learn some of the history of the property and get a glimpse into some of the tools we use and methodologies. But at the end of the day, it's ratings.
It's not all bad, as you said. I'm an OG Unsolved Mysteries fanboy. Like, obviously, grew up watching as a kid, so I found out that channel on Samsung TV. It just basically like 24/7 Unsolved Mysteries. I literally just leave it on that channel, and I'm just like, I've seen them all like 3-4 times, and like, man, this show is good. Things are a little bit dated, sure, because that was the 90s or whatever they show. Again, I watched that as a young man, but still love the show. Just going back to the Adobe, so what did you uncover on this initial investigation, and then just maybe break down some your thoughts and findings?
Sure. So again, we've been there for many, many years. We've done so we've captured a lot of evidence. I've had a lot of personal experiences on our tours, as well as some of our private investigations where it's just us in the building with a security guard, and so they trust us there. I mean, there's the main building, and then there's the guest house, and usually the security guards in the guest house. So we just have it's just ourselves in the main property. Initially, we were still getting used to the history of the location. It has an expansive history, dating back to like around 1844, when the property was deeded by Governor Pio Pico to a Native American by the name of Felipe Subria. So from that time until the city purchased it in 1989, it's seen many different owners, and some of those are very famous local San Diego pioneers, such as Cave Johnson Couts and Isadora Bandini de Couts from the famed Bandini family. So we were still on that first investigation. We were still learning about the history and the property. And so we had personal experiences, but we captured a lot of instrumental transcommunication, or ITC, captures. And I know that ITC can be very controversial just because it's so subjective when you have the AM and FM scanning of the sweeping of the AM and FM radios. It's hard sometimes to hear what words are coming out. Could it be a radio fragment and so forth? But we actually had some interesting captures that really correlated to the history and to the questions and discussions we were having. So we noticed that, and then as time went on, and when we started doing the tours, everything just developed. I mean, Allie and I, my team co-director and co-host, her and I have been able to go into the property month after month, and we can now recognize the same types of vocalizations that are coming through. And many of them have introduced themselves, have actually responded to our questions when we've addressed them. For example, Maria Antonia, one of the daughters of the Couts family. For example, questions we'll have like, Maria, are we speaking to you? Are you here? And you'll hear yes and things like that. And this isn't just like one or two times. This is like consecutive types of evidence coming from the same types of vocalizations.
Absolutely.
So that's what makes it interesting. And with ITC, I know it's controversial, but what we look for is, okay, are the words and or sentences that come through, are they very clear to understand? Are they responding to our questions? Do they have something to do with the history, things of that nature? And it's amazing. ITC, for some reason, seems to work really well there. But people have had all kinds of experiences, from shadow figures to hearing disembodied voices to seeing full-bodied apparitions. There's a lady in white there, right? There seems to be a lady in white everywhere, but there's claims there with the lady in white, just a lot of historical layers. And I don't know, ley lines. I think with Southern California, it's just so prominent with ley lines. That can have something to do with it. Maybe there's some weird portal on the property. And why I say that, it's interesting because Allie and I have both had very profound experiences with our deceased loved ones on that property. And so that's what makes me think is, I don't know, is it maybe we're so comfortable there that maybe our relatives can come through when we're there, or is there something else, like a portal, something going on?
Gateway.
But yeah, exactly. But it's just the history itself and having so many past owners. I think that really plays into why it's so, paranormally active. So, and one other thing, we've been actually, and this I think is more rare than common, we've actually taken some of our audio clips and the responses we've received, whether it's EVP, electronic voice phenomena, or ITC, and we've verified the answers or the accuracy of those responses with actual historical records. So the Huntington Library in San Marino, amazing. I don't know if you guys have been there, amazing. They have all kinds of original journals from Cave Johnson Couts. So we have gone there 2 days, like 2 full days. They're just reading through his journals, going through all this research. And it's pretty amazing to have like verified, the accuracy with some of these responses.
Yeah, that's good, guys.
I was just going to say, having a passion for history myself, you're getting that dual satisfaction because you've got kind of that echo and window in time back to that moment, well, I was going to say not what it was like, because of course we're in the 21st century, but I find that truly fascinating. And then to have that verified as well.
But it's like a window to the past, like you're saying. You still get a chance to glimpse,
right?
That moment. No, that's interesting. I what struck out to me was if you guys are able to verify the voices, and it's it's reoccurring. I mean, I know it's not an exact science, if you will, but obviously you guys would know if it's if it's close in vocalization or sound as opposed to completely different.
Exactly, and that's what I was referring to. I mean, obviously, without doing like forensic voice analysis and all of that, it's the same. And some of these voices are so unique, and it's the same ones that are coming through. And to me, that to me that's telling. So it's awesome. I can't wait till it opens again and we can do our tours, and I'll let you know when they reopen.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll be in contact via email, etc. And I'll definitely be down. And then, as you said, verifying it with the actual historical records, as Gaz was just saying. I mean, that's big for us too. I mean, just because Gaz and I are huge history nerds, so as you get again, you get to kind of scratch both itches of the paranormal investigation as well. And it's always nice when it backs up too. If the ghost tells you something ridiculous and you just can't find it anywhere, then most likely it's just inaccurate or probably didn't happen. But when you actually pull a record that says, okay, this date matched up or this event matched up or whatever, I mean, I think that kind of really gives it some credence, as Gaz was just saying.
That's some holy grail stuff right there. And I just, I don't know if you really can approach paranormal investigation without loving history. It's like you have to. So I'm a huge history nerd too. So. Welcome to the club.
I'm doing my best to behave myself.
Well, again, I think, as you said, so much of it overlaps because of a lot of these things, especially in, I guess, what you would call old style town, old timey areas such as New England and San Diego. A lot of what dredges up are these residuals from the past, right? Or even even a place like New Orleans, and and I think you and Lon were talking about the was it Gettysburg?
Gettysburg, I'm actually going there this summer.
Sure, and that's awesome, definitely. Because we had our boy War Wraiths was out there, right, guys? So one of our buddies was out there doing some work, and he did a documentary, I think.
He did. He looked at that very famous hospital from the American Civil War, supposedly one of the most haunted places in the country. And you mentioned New Orleans. I know there's that. I can't remember offhand now, but isn't there? There's an inn on one of the campus of the university in New Orleans, supposedly haunted by a Confederate soldier. It's a very interesting case.
That's. I mean, you know how common that is for me, Gaz, in Lexington and Concord and the early battles of the Revolution. Nicole, I'm sure you're in tune with, because that's the old. Is it the Concord Inn, I believe, and there's anyway, just like the Star of India, or just like any of the old warships in New England and Boston, because it all kind of comes back to that. Residual, which is an echo time, which I'm sure you have investigated much more than either of us have.
I can't wait. I was just having a team meeting with the Ghost Research Society. I'm their California coordinator. It's headed up by Dale Katzmarek. And so we're going in August. And so I've never been to Gettysburg. I don't know why I have not been. I just haven't. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. I mean, and again, Gaz and I are huge historical war nerds. I mean, obviously, I'm originally from New Hampshire, which is the second state, Nicole, just north.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful out there.
And there are a lot of strange activity just across Massachusetts and New Hampshire. So that's why I'm more on the Revolution side. But again, like I was telling you off air, I love the pirate. And anywhere with a port, right? You're just gonna have pirates and crime and treasure, and it's just like, okay, let me get into some pirate era true crime here. You know what I mean? What was going on here? Like,
that's good stuff.
Saying no, it's just so interesting. You start reading and you can't put it down. That kind of takes us into San Diego's most haunted, your work or hauntings. You mentioned the Whaley House earlier. I have been there. One thing I'm mad about is I really haven't got a chance to do any of the touristy ghost tours in San Diego. I know there's the more like in-depth, lesser-known cases that we're all into, but me personally, I love doing both sides. I like to do the touristy stuff and just to see what they say. You know what I mean? Like, it's anything, right. Reach out to me, and then of course you can dive into the kind of lesser-known cases, as we said, on your own. But I think it's a good way to open people up. I like doing both just because I'm interested across the board. I'm no expert. So
that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yep.
So what are main cases that either you wrote about in your work or just ones that stuck out for you? It doesn't matter if it's big or small, just anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing about San Diego is, there's so many lesser known areas that aren't really talked about. And then there's the real famous ones that are. I know in the book San Diego's Most Haunted, the places that we feature, we've mainly investigated those, so we have firsthand experience with paranormal investigation at those sites. Some of the obviously well-known ones in San Diego, you have the Hotel Del, you have the San Diego Maritime Museum, Star of India, Berkeley Ferry Boat. I think those two, because they're so adjacent to each other, they share some of the energy there.
Sure.
Gas
I've
lamp.
heard a lot about the Midway and of course
the Midway. Lamp, right? I've been on board the Midway and was able to go down to the lower areas. but I don't. They used to. I don't know about now, but I think they don't allow paranormal investigations. But I mean, just thinking of its history, pretty much any ship is fair game.
And we're going to come to that in the Queen Mary.
Absolutely, but yeah, I mean, and then getting down to Gaslamp too, with all the hotels there, the William Heath Davis House, Davis Horton House, the Horton Grand, some of the real more famous ones.
Yeah, I heard the Grant is big. I've been in the bar, admittedly. I mean, so I've heard. And
of the U.S. Grant.
Yeah,
and so that and the Horton Grand, are the two really well-known ones. Theaters. Oh gosh, there's some lesser known ones, but pretty much all the theaters. And then when you get into Old Town, I mean, you have certain sites that are more talked about, like the Cosmopolitan Hotel, the Laramie, I think, cigar shop, Whaley House, El Campo Santo. But when you think about it, pretty much any building or part of land there is fair game. And we've actually done investigations of the Sarah Museum in Presidio Park up above as well. So, and then getting up into North County, some of the more famous ones, Elfin Forest, which I don't really think is paranormal. It's more chocked full of legend and lore.
Sure.
Oh, Proctor. That's the same with Proctor Valley Road down in Bonita. But so many places, libraries. We've actually done a lot of library investigations, Escondido Public Library, Chula Vista. So, but some of these lesser known areas that are, to me, intriguing, especially with the myth and urban legend lore, like Proctor Valley Road and Lakeside. There's the Screaming Tree there. Pretty much, I mean, it's interesting because even private residences, we've even done a lot of investigations there throughout San Diego. Sure. So it's just, I think San Diego's interesting. Obviously, it's newer, of course, than, back east. But it's the birthplace of California, and you have all the different historical layers. You have the people that came here thousands and thousands of years ago. You have the Native American period. You have the Mexican Rancho period after Mexico became emancipated from Spain. You have the American period with Newtown and some of our local pioneers, and even war. World War I and World War II. Exactly. So you have all of that, and it mixes together, and it creates such a good foundation for all of these types of events and hauntings. So
for sure, I mean, there really is several different degrees of a history of violence there as well, and I really think that obviously, like we said, with Gettysburg and the Revolutionary period, it does leave that kind of a stronger residual, echo or impression, or so it seems. And
absolutely, even like Julian too. Up in Julian, we actually investigated several times, so it was in a way a case study. The Pine Hills Lodge, it did change owners, but a lot of activity there just up in Julian, which is not, a surprise, being that it's, an old mining town. But even getting out into like Anza Borrego Desert, lots of places there, and even spook lights like the Oriflamme or Oriflame lights are seen out there. So I mean, it's just so much from paranormal to spook lights to legend and lore. There's a lot out here that can keep you busy. So
yeah, I mean, since you just brought up like the Anza Borrego, I've heard of this Borrego Sandman. Gaz and I are big cryptid nerds, so this desert squatch out there. I think I was telling you about the Borrego Sandman, right, guys? Yeah. And so there was just so much reports and activity. Like, it's kind of my same opinion on some of the New England stuff I was telling you about. Like, once it comes up dozens of times, like somebody saw something. I'm not confirming that I know what they saw, but it's just hard to believe with the repeated accounts that just like this many random people would be making.
Got to be something there,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
Something to chew on there.
And
something
that's interesting. Yeah, too, about Proctor Valley Road. And I mean, some of the claims there are way out there, but I mean, there was I think one of the, and I talk about this in San Diego's Most Haunted. I think it was a local psychiatrist, and I forget if he was the one that had cattle, but someone there had cattle, and the cattle kept being mutilated in these weird ways. But I think the psychiatrist found like a fossilized imprint of this large ape foot, right? And people have seen chupacabra there, or not seen, but the cattle mutilations claims, okay, it's chupacabra, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, other types of weirdness like phantom cars, hitchhikers, ghostly kids' hands on the cars. Drive down so I don't know if some of those can be explained away, but you know?
And the thing is, as well, what's interesting is every now and then a report gets into the mainstream as well. There was a few years ago, there was the sightings. I know this is a kind of a bit offshoot from monsters, but there was reports on both sides of the pond about people seeing these kids with black eyes everywhere. There was a guy who came out of a movie theater, and he said this kid come up to him, about 14 or whatever, black eyes, knew the name of him, knew the name of his wife. And if you just heard that once, everyone go, oh yeah, this is crazy, this is just made up. But as Ross just said, when it's repeated sightings from all walks of life, and especially professional people, pilots, military and police, where they're trained to observe quickly and report what they see as well, then that gives some credence that there is something there to investigate.
Right. Well said.
100%. Even Julian, I believe there was a report of Bigfoot activity.
Oh yes.
And I'm from a very small town in southern New Hampshire, as I'm always talking about with Gaz, and there was even a report in '77 there. So like that piqued my radar, because I'm like, man, this is my town. I don't know if there's anything to it, but that was my town, right? So it's like you're always looking for things you relate to from where you're from. But as you were just saying, similar to Proctor, there's this place in Massachusetts called the Bridgewater Triangle. It's old,
I've heard of that.
It's an old area called the Hockomock Swamp of the Wampanoag people. And the activity, kind of like you were just saying there, the activity is all across the board. It's everything from the Dover Devil, I believe it is, if I didn't just butcher that. It's another type of chupacabra-esque, like all on four rodent demon creature cryptid, to UFOs, spirits, what else? What are they called? The Pukwudgies. They're small troll creatures. It's a Wampanoag legend of beckoning people into the swamp and whatever, getting children or small people lost in the water, and kind of beckoning you in to drown, like some sort of troll demon. So it's the same type of thing as you were saying. It's like when you get one of those vortexes or vortices, you kind of just get everything all at once, and you know what I mean. So then and then satanic cult activity, a lot of suicides. It's called the Freetown State Park. So it's just one of those areas where you get everything so concentrated. And I'm sure it's kind of spread out land-wise, but as you were saying, in the grand scheme of things, a generally pretty focused microscope of an area for that much activity in a place like New England that's pretty sleepy and quiet. That's a lot going on,
insane. What have you looked into the geology of that part of the land out there? I'm wondering if that has anything to.
I should dive more into it. I'll see what else I can find on it and get back.
Yeah, I don't know. It makes me wonder if there's like this giant matrix and everything is connected. So from cryptids to ghosts to spirits to maybe there's.
So my man Lazarus just said bat squatch. If I'm not mistaken, there was this, and we'll get back into our questions, but this is on report of this Vietnam activity, guys. I think it was on History Channel, where the soldiers were looking through their
I know
rifles, and you got these squatch type creatures, but they were flying squatches, and like that. I thought I've heard everything, but you always hear a new one that blows your mind, and then they supposedly
Mothman Squatch. There you
go. I love Mothman. I'm just gonna come to Mothman. That might be my favorite one out of everything. And I'm not a big like down south guy, but Mothman is just like what happened there? You know what I mean? It's
Lon Strickland. Lon is a good friend of mine, and he knows a lot about Mothman. Also, Rosemary Ellen Guiley has written on it too.
If he can do a schedule, we'd love to get Lon on and talk Mothman, because that is again Gaz is out in England, so me and him are big like Loch Ness Monster fanboys, and then Rendlesham and all the kind of other stuff you get. And then I'm not far from Lake Champlain, so obviously you have a champ out there. So we do follow that closely. But yeah, as far as like my southern case, it would be Mothman, because I'm just like anything I watch of that, I'm like, what? I'm like, how did this happen? Like the whole story about he tried to like wrestle a lady's like baby away, and I think she hit him off with something, and it's like, what? What was
I've heard that one. Yes.
And I think he rode on top of those kids' car too while they were driving away. So it's just like, wow. You know what I mean? It's a lot. It
is a lot, but it's fascinating though.
For
there's just something intriguing about it. I wanted to ask you this, Nicole. So of all the many cases that you've looked at, has there been one that's been truly terrifying?
Oh, yeah, I get asked this a lot, and it's weird. Before I answer, I'm one of these that for some reason I don't get scared of this. I just I maybe because I've been used to it and I've done it for so many years, and plus as a kid, I've had so many experiences, so it's almost like second nature. So I don't really get scared, but oh my gosh, I mean, there's one that stands out, and I've shared this before on other shows, in terms of being scared or kind of maybe not scared, but more like startled. I'm not going to say the name of the place, but it is in Camarillo, California. That should give it away right there. It's now a university, but it was an old hospital, right? So we were there one night, and it's just one of those situations that you obviously don't expect. So I was setting up, if I remember correctly, I was setting up a static camera in one of the rooms. I forget where we were. I mean, it was dark in there. It was just there was hardly any light. This was like one in the morning. I was setting up a static camera. I was like positioning it on the tripod and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, maybe about 8 feet in front of me, 8 to 10 feet in front of me, I saw with my own eyes this, oh gosh, 7 to 8 foot tall shadow person. Now it started out as just like a dark blob, but then it became humanoid. And I'm talking about darker than dark, like dark in color. I mean, just form and shoot right at me. Almost like not the speed of light, but super fast.
Yeah.
It just was my fight or flight. I actually ran out of the building, which I never do. I never do that. So that was one that comes to mind. And I know this might sound silly, but if I'm like outdoors or whatnot, spiders, okay, they scare me more than anything else.
I don't particularly like them. It doesn't sound silly.
Bats hitting me in the head when I was at Waverly Hills. Me and Rosemary Ellen Guiley were getting hit in the head with bats.
That's never pleasant, is it?
Yeah, that's only takes a few of those to send you off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't get scared. I just don't.
No, that's extreme. I would have had the same reaction as yours. I mean, again, it's tough.
It was crazy.
It's tough to say like, hey, I'm a professional and I do this regularly and keep calm, as to just when your instinct kicks in and that was an instinct, that second, right. You know what I mean? So it's like, no matter what training you have, I feel like, you resort
right. You're a human, right?
Exactly. There's going to be those moments, isn't there?
Yeah.
So you're dealing with the unknown.
Yeah. Just to follow on from that, is there any cases or areas either in the States or outside of the States that you've always wanted to investigate and it's on your bucket list?
Oh, I have several on my bucket list. Stanley Hotel is one of them. Just mainly because I want to see it. I love Colorado and want to see it. Gettysburg, which I'm going to in the summer. Let's see, a Sloss Furnace would be one. Let's see, Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is one that I'd like to go to. Myrtle's Plantation for sure. And there's many others I'm just not saying right now.
Asylums are big. They're kind of all over YouTube.
Lizzie Borden House would be one.
Outside. Ooh, that's up my alley.
Oh yeah. Outside, abroad, I would say definitely the Tower of London. That's big on my list. But many, Leap or Lep Castle, Loch Ness Monster, Dale Katzmarek of the Ghost Research Society. He actually just went out to different parts of the United Kingdom with another member who's from there named Paul Adams, and they had such a good time. They actually went to where Loch Ness is spotted, but he obviously didn't spot him. But there's so many locations. It's insane.
What about that? Well, I'm 90 minutes from Edinburgh. Actually, I'm in the northeast of England, so we're pretty much right next door.
Wow.
Would you ever be interested in, and forgive me because I forget the name, it's the forest in Japan, you probably know.
The Aokigahara.
Yes, that looks so creepy.
Absolutely. I'm surprised I didn't mention that, because I've watched probably every documentary type YouTube video there is on it. I have a book on it that I'm reading. There's just something about it that it just calls me, and it's so sad. And I mean, there was, a famous YouTuber that went there and did that whole thing. I'm not going to mention his name. We all know who he is. That is absolutely disgusting.
It's nonsense.
But it's but just it's sad and tragic. It's that interplay between being utterly tragic and sad and utterly beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why people go there.
Yeah.
It's right under Mount, what is it?
Is it
Mount Fiji? Is it
Fuji?
Fuji.
Yeah.
Fiji.
Absolutely. I totally want to go there. Oh my gosh. Just to walk through.
Good call, guys. Good call.
Have you been there?
I haven't, but as you can probably guess in the background, I'm generally fascinated by Japanese culture.
Yes.
Well, martial artist as well, and I've been obsessed with it all my life. Well, Ross and the guys often will sometimes say he's like a born again samurai, but I take it as a compliment.
Maybe you have a past life where you maybe were or something.
Yeah,
we call him Gaz the Highlander.
That too. Yeah, I get a bit passionate and feisty about things, but I'm on good behavior too.
Going back to the lock. So Nessie is probably like what got me stuck on this for the rest of my life. I believe I was in second grade when I started taking out books of the library on like Loch, and there's some UFO sightings at Loch Ness. I'm sure me and you have talked about that, guys. But you know what I mean. So I've like always been in tune with that one, and then it's like at that age I was like, what do you mean there's a monster in the lake? you guys don't know what it is. Like I was at that age and I had some real serious questions about that issue. So I was like, all right, let me crack into these books and get to work here, because clearly you guys are missing something. And then the craziest thing I was just going to say about that is the reports of Nessie being on land when those people, there's like probably at least 3 or 4, probably more of those of Nessie resting on the land, and then like when the car drives by, then it gets up and jumps in the water. And I'm like, wait, what? It's everywhere now? Like, what's going on here? So again, I don't know what that means, but it means there might be more flexibility there than just something that is more stuck to the water. You know what I mean? Which
exactly.
Is, ocean monsters, or take your pick.
What was it? It reminds me too. Lake Elsinore apparently has something similar to Loch Ness. I think
interesting. I got a buddy up there.
It's like Elsie, or I think
I'll check that out. I like that.
Yeah. Right. I mean, isn't that cool. Neat?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of them do. And then is it Minnesota or Utah? There's that one that has like the string of lakes where there's just like there's supposedly one in every one of them, so that's interesting too, clearly.
I think Missouri has like the Wendigo, which is like the boogeyman.
So that's the Wendigo. I thought that's up north in Canada. That's similar to like
it is up there, but
they say it's like a
it is
like a skinwalker type.
I actually know one of my friends' moms actually who lives in Missouri. I think it's Missouri, and she claimed to have had a contact with one of the Wendigo when she was a kid. I don't know. That's just her claim, but they are in Canada.
Well, there is that one thing. This is going to be gruesome, guys. Spoiler alert. You can drop if you can't handle this, but it's a true crime channel, so you've heard me say way worse. But there was that one incident with the tourist kid on the bus. What was that? You guys, the Canadian tour bus, and he took out like the big Rambo knife, and he started like hacking that dude next to him. I think almost decapitated him. I know this is a graphic conversation, guys. And it was said that they thought that kid got the dude was actually sleeping when he started stabbing him. They said that they thought that kid got possessed by either the skinwalker. They're saying because it was Canada that it was like the Wendigo took control of him. Or, what you hear that story occasionally where these people lose control, and it's to say.
Interesting with the whole cryptid culture, because they are associated with the myth and folklore, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of the reports are probably imagined or faked or things like that, but it does make you wonder, going back to the very first sighting of these and like going back and analyzing the very first witness of all of these different cryptids and how that witness is similar to different than the others. That's 100%. Something I think we should, as investigators look into, just to curious.
I agree with 100%. The only area I could see that being an issue are the Squatches, because it seems like every single state has a different looking one. And then, of course, here in the States, you have the old Native, Indigenous, First Nation story. And seems like that's where a lot of the lore comes from. And then all of a sudden you have the variations of every other country too. The Yowie in Australia, Russia, not, the Yeti, not to say that, but that your process is not correct. It's just, you're going to receive different data from these different, the Yeti doesn't really look anything like the Squatch here in the Pacific Northwest.
Exactly. And a lot of people differ on whether it's a interdimensional being or a flesh and blood animal. And so you have that in there as well.
I'm glad you brought that up. So Gaz and I have had this conversation. You and Lon talked about the connection between paranormal and cryptids, and it only occurred to me to bring it up again because I saw you and Lon discussing it, and then me and Gaz have had this repeating conversation of, I'll just focus, you just made a great point, and then I'll just focus on like the extraterrestrial side, these reports that me and Gaz talk about of a UFO coming and landing in the woods, and then a Squatch walks out, and it's like, and I don't know if that is coincidence. Again, we're in a total gray area here where we don't have any data. But as you and Lon were insinuating, I kind of agree that there has to be some connection because there seems to be so much overlap. Unless I'm totally wrong on this, which
you're onto something, and it's like, I think that there's some giant matrix going on where there's a connection between all of these different beings, whether it's alien, extraterrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, cryptids, ghosts, spirit. I think there's some sort of weird nexus going on.
Like an overlap of the spectrum.
I think so.
For some reason it crossfades.
I think so. And I've heard of so many reports of two different types of areas being combined. So you have like a UFO that crashes and then someone sees Sasquatch or something like that. Or they see an alien type of being and then, there goes Sasquatch, so
exactly.
I don't know. I don't consider myself a real Bigfoot researcher. I mean, I've read up on it. I have gone on a couple expeditions, but I'm not so sure. I think there might be something to Bigfoot or Sasquatch being an interdimensional being. Maybe he and she, because there are apparently 100%. Females and males. Maybe they are flesh and blood in their reality. So maybe they are flesh and blood, just not, but in their reality, but yet they appear like that in our reality. I don't know.
I don't think you're that far off because Ancient Aliens presented that theory of the lake monsters. And again, I'm not saying I embrace this, but I did find it interesting. It was the crystals lining for instance, the loch, we'll just use Loch Ness as an example, lining the bottom, and then it somehow created the energy that created these residual echoes. So what they were saying is like, you're essentially seeing the dinosaur water monsters, but seeing, I'd hesitate to call it a hologram or a projection of the past. You know what I mean? So you're seeing these things. And it was just a theory, but I think it plays into what you were just saying, because there's even the native legends that, it's a bit of a blessing to see Sasquatch, that, in other words, he or she only reveals themselves to you when you're supposed to see it, and that's why most people don't. It kind of plays into that same spectrum that you're. I think it's somewhere in between there, because we obviously haven't figured it out yet. So
and maybe we're not supposed to figure it out.
100%.
That's the whole thing about all of this. Maybe we are not.
It's just a mystery that we're not meant to understand. A mystery beyond us. I do want to come to the Queen Mary. I just for all my Zodiac heads, I just want to run this. So how familiar are you with early 60s Southern California cold cases? Just regular crimes?
Ooh, probably not. Yeah. I mean, probably the more famous ones, but probably not as much as I should be.
No, well,
you'll know more than me. I know nothing.
Yeah. True crime is.
You're a busy guy.
I love true crime. I really do, and I'm getting more into it too as I get older.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. So my main series on the channel is a series called The Zodiac Files, which relates to the Zodiac killer of the North Bay area, 68, 69. Well, there's a string of a crime spree in Southern California, two of which are very close to where you and myself are at. One is in Ocean Beach. That's the Swindles, Johnny, Ray, and Joyce Swindle, 1964. Another one is Ray Davis up in Oceanside, 1962. They're very, very similar modus operandis to what Zodiac did in the North Bay area.
Oh, wow. Were they copycats? maybe?
Well, that's that. You'd have to. I'll send you my episodes of my series, and so there's a whole lot of theories of whether it's Zodiac making a copycat off of what was done in the early 60s in Southern California, or perhaps Zodiac in Southern California before the late 60s operating before he called himself. So that's kind of the direction my series goes in. Again, these are unconfirmed Zodiac killings, but I've focused my series on them. So my first episode, which chronologically actually would have been I believe the second one, it would have been Ray Davis, then the Swindles over at Ocean Beach, where I was telling you, it's actually right by the old, they called it the seaside slayings. And I can send you some articles and stuff. Anyway, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because there's actually a paranormal story that's attached to this crime. Zodiac, I don't know if you've seen the movie or how well you know the actual Zodiac case in the North Bay. He ambushed male-female couples on lover lanes in the middle of the night and just would attack them with a barrage of bullets and kind of drive off.
Right.
Well, Johnny Ray and Joyce Swindle are shot on the Ocean Beach boardwalk February 1964, around the Valentine's Day week. And they were only 19 and 20. They're shot with a .22 long ammunition, which is used in several of the other pre-canonical crimes, as well as Zodiac's first crime, Lake Herman Road in 68. So, that could be a parallel, just the same ammunition, same MO, as I was saying. So they're watching the ocean. This was their ritual. They would go down there and just kind of watch the ocean. They're just shot by a sniper. The articles say, psychopathic thrill killer. It seems like it was a thrill kill, meaning quite literally the murder just for the murder, just for the thrill. And they're kind of shot in the back from far away up the slope. It's right at the end of Narragansett there. I'm sure you've been to.
Oh, absolutely.
At that dead end, right at the cliffs there where the stairs go down to the water, right at that spot. And I'll send you my episode so you can see what happened. So they're shot in the back. He walks up to them. He finishes off point blank. Some trophies are taken, such as her necklace and I think perhaps some other things. Ultimately, it's an unsolved, like all these cases I cover in my series are unsolved cold cases. There was a report of a man running away. Like that's about as much information as they have on it, just because, they heard some things, but it wasn't reported in time for anybody to react. So the killer just runs away, escapes. Well, I make this story long to tell you the payoff here. There's stories of breaking glass noises in the old hotel, which is apartments now, and screams of the night. Unintelligible names, and the lore is that is Joyce, Johnny Ray's wife, kind of stuck in the residual effect of the crime there. So I would love to get you or anyone else you think would help.
I was actually just going to say it might be worthwhile. Obviously, I had a good time to maybe you and I or whoever else could maybe go out there and do some questioning. Because I'm wondering if we could. I mean. I think it's better at the location, but you can do it elsewhere too. But I think just to see if maybe there is something, and even if you get an answer that's that seemingly confirms it, maybe that it's still not like proof or anything, but at least it can lead you in a direction.
I don't believe it's malevolent or anything, but mostly I think what people hear are her voice in the ballrooms, breaking glass, the light going on and off, and then so it's that dark. If you know where the boardwalk is out there that goes out to the water, it's right around that corner at the little peninsula there that wraps around with the stairs that go up to the dead end. The ballroom's right there.
Yeah, are there any claims actually at that spot that people have they seen them?
I don't know about
phantom
outside
gunshots or
that would be interesting. Of course, I would love to know that. So I think I've been down there once or twice, but not at crazy times in the middle of the night or anything. And I do have my EMP reader just to see if I could get any readings. But yeah, I think it would be worth EVP. I think everything would be on the table.
Yeah, trying that ITC.
I would like to test
EVP.
That one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be cool. So we could definitely get that on and then we could if we come up with anything, I would love to present the findings to my audience. But yeah, that's kind of the one of my personal cases that I cover on my series that
I think that'd be worthwhile.
Just happens to overlap. I think there's enough there that again, who's to say it's even Joyce's spirit, because it could be something totally random. But just
they lived out there.
Very close by, so I do have their addresses.
Everything. You do have that's
everything occurred right in that same little kind of that neighborhood, Ocean Beach, just within streets. You know, they only lived a few streets over, so it's very concentrated in that area.
I was actually just out there on Monday night for a presentation, so I actually passed by Narragansett. So I've been to that spot.
Yep. So that's the dead end with the stairs. And then, you know, how if you go on the outer side, you can go all the way outside. It wraps around the corner. And that's the ballroom there in that concrete building. And then it goes to that dark corner under the boardwalk that goes out to the ocean there. So, yeah, it's one of those cool little dark. And of course, it's a beautiful spot. But every time I go there, I have a different, you know, I guess perspective, because I've got this violent cold case in the back of my mind, and I'm like, I gotta solve this.
And I bet you so many people are unaware of it too. You know?
Totally. I mean, we're talking 64, so you know what I mean. I think I'm the only history nerd out there. Like, do you guys hear anything? You know,
I would be down for that. I think that just to see and.
I'll send you some information. I mean, of course, we can tag the episode here. Most of my channel's already seen it, but I'll definitely send you some info on that one. It's something I would like to follow up, just because, you know.
Yeah, definitely audio too. I mean, I think that would be, and just to, you know, be human about it and just let them know that, you know, there's a better place. You don't have to you know, relive all the pain if they are, you know, if they're stuck 100%. Or anything like that. So, you know. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
It's those violent cold cases. I mean, of course, it was
they
the 60s,
get you.
So
yeah, they
in
get
the news, you. They kind of showed some things I don't necessarily agree with, which was the bodies on the boardwalk covered by a blanket. But again, it was the 60s news. So
it was
things were done quite differently than they're done. I'm sorry about that, guys, but things were just done differently back then than you know, how things are done today. That's the unfortunate thing of history research.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah. For sure. But I just wanted to just get your thoughts on that one. But you guys want to do some Queen Mary? What do you guys think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
I can talk Queen Mary all night.
You've got extensive work on it. And I've heard quite a bit about here from, you know, the so-called research I've been doing. Of course, I came in on the Unsolved Mysteries episode, which I think we both watch, Gaz. And just I know it's a popular TV reference, but even things they just showed on there, like the one time the lady was coming up the escalator and she turned around and the mechanic dude was standing right behind her on the escalator. It was like one of the workers of the Queen Mary, and like turned around and he was gone. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, that probably would have got me if that happened to me, to be honest with you.
I will say that some of my best, when I say best, most profound experiences, whether it's apparitional sightings, shadow figure sightings, disembodied voices, being touched, I have occurred on the Queen Mary.
Okay.
So, yeah.
There you go, guys.
Yeah, the one that, I mean, we hear about it a lot here as well for obvious reasons. It does sometimes, I feel, fall in a bit of the shadow of the Titanic.
It does. It absolutely does. There is definitely a connection. I do believe there are actually Titanic crew and passengers in spirit form on board the Queen Mary. Because I remember seeing an officer, and I could tell by his garb that it was not the era of the Queen Mary.
Yeah.
That's matched. Very interesting.
Yeah. So I just feel
I like that a lot.
And they're so interconnected. And the Queen Mary, Commodore Britain on the Queen Mary's maiden voyage actually sailed the Queen Mary like right past the sinking spot of the Titanic. So I think that was the first time a ship resembling the Titanic had crossed that section.
Sure.
And so I think that may have been a tap-in point.
I agree.
I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, because a lot of people, we hear about it growing up here, especially because of Winston Churchill associated with it. So we're always being told about the Queen Mary. We hear from people, and then with what happened to the Titanic, and like what you've just said, Nicole, people often they'll say, for example, well, isn't it funny it sailed past the part where the Titanic was? Do you think there's some correlation there?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you go. I was just going to say when you've probably been asked this 900 million times, but just for our watchers here, I'm asking it for them as well. That's a disclaimer I'm going with. Can you tell us about that that feeling you had the first time you stepped on the Queen Mary?
Oh yes, so I was introduced to the Queen Mary when in 2000. So I came back out here from college to do a cruise, and there's a Carnival cruise port right adjacent to it. So my first sighting of the ship was from a backseat of a car, and I just was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to put in words, but I made a mental note and I said, you know what? I will be back here someday. So fast forward to 2005. That's my first actual time of stepping on board. And I try to relay this feeling in my books about the Queen Mary. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was the second I stepped on board, I felt at home.
Wow.
I felt everything about the ship was completely familiar, like I had been there before. I felt just a sensation of like such a connection to the ship. And it's hard to put in words. And it's, and as I started researching and talking to former crew and veterans and war brides, many of them have had that same experience. So there's just something about the Queen Mary that calls certain people.
So do you feel it spoke to your soul?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this may sound hokey to some people, but I do believe wholeheartedly that the Queen Mary itself is sentient. Absolutely. And I think there's this interplay between the ship being intelligent in some way or another. I mean, I do believe she can communicate, and then that interplays with a lot of her resident energies on board. So
the spirit of the ship itself.
Well,
yeah. And that may sound hokey to some people. This is just my feeling from.
I don't think it does.
No, I don't. I mean, if you take a very simple example of this, when you go in houses and they've got that good or bad spirit, especially if something horrible has happened there, and you think, oh, you just feel, it's almost as if the hair's going you back, and you think, I've got to get out of here. You feel sick, dizzy. Oh, yeah. And I think, well, if we look at the Queen Mary in history, it's like, well, it can be that situation, but magnified 1000%, amped up to a totally other level. So it's not surprising, to hear that.
Yeah, I so agree, and it's from my experiences and from all my research, I don't really consider myself an expert. I think the ship's if there's an expert in the ship, it's the ship itself. But just I've done a lot of research, and I've spent like thousands of hours there, so I'm familiar with the claims, and I'm familiar with a lot of the spirits. I mean, I'll hear my name called when I go on, and I'm very meticulous, and I'll look around. There's no one there. I've heard male, female, hi Nicole, or I've heard Nicole's here, so but it's just it has a very a very beautiful spiritual aura about it. And it's, I mean, the longevity of the ship, because if you go back and read about the history, I mean, in all situations, she should be I'm going to say that she should be at the bottom of the ocean, but she survived all these near catastrophic incidences. So it's like there's this weird layer of protection, like she's meant to just last and go on, almost like she's living out the legacy of other ships like the Titanic that did. And I know I'm like, this might sound hokey to some people, but
no.
That's just my thought.
I mean, there's almost like a fight to survive there, preserve, if you will.
So we don't forget. What I find interesting to you both as well, there was a recent Netflix series called 1899, which was similar, like a passenger liner, like the Queen Mary, had people from all over the world traveling. We found the series, kind of spoilers alert, folks, you find out the ship goes missing, other versions of this ship, and it does kind of go in the sci-fi simulation realm. I've just spoiled the whole series for anyone who hasn't watched it. Sorry about that. Oh well, yeah, you're welcome. But
jeez, no, I'm just kidding.
It goes over. This is
it's one of my bad habits. I'm always doing it.
You're good.
But I wonder if I haven't read about what the inspiration was for the series, but I did see some parallels whilst watching it with the Queen Mary, with the Titanic, and I wondered if the people behind that show were actually interested in those cases as well. So it's definitely still remains such a fascinating story and piece of history, I think, that people are universally interested in all over the world.
Right. I mean, it's interesting with the Queen Mary too, because her design concepts began around 1926 when all these countries were competing to build these large, fast ocean liners. I mean, it all started with Samuel Cunard's vision, really. So we have to credit him. But it's just well, where was I going with that? Well, part of it was that I was actually, this was several years ago. I had on TV, and there was one of the ghost shows on, not to knock it, but one of the people on the show was aboard. It was an episode on the Queen Mary, and she point blank said, "I think this is a ship with evil forces." And that angered me so much. I mean, it's such a disrespect to the ship's history. Of course, people died on board. Of course, World War II, it was arduous, and, there was tragedy, there was happiness and all of this, but no, certainly not a ship of evil forces. Not at all. It's like the exact opposite.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I was going to say is, going along with piggybacking off both your, lines of thought, was, how often is it we hear these stories of a haunted household item, be it, a bed or a chair or a vase. And then you think of, I don't know, maybe the whole structure, as you were just saying, of the construction, it kind of creates that kind of like, vortice, you know what I mean? And then it's kind of I don't want to say traps the energy in, but it kind of creates a cauldron of, kind of the manifestation, and just kind of keeps it seems to keep it concentrated, in my amateur opinion. I know you're much more sharper on the history, Nicole, so I want to just reference this event that I've heard you speak on with Lon, and then they did cover it on Unsolved Mysteries, is this collision Queen Mary had with another ship, and then people have heard the residual echoes and the screams of the mechanics and the guys who work down there, and even the sound of the explosions. Like the descriptions are too detailed for me to say that, like, those are random echoes you heard coming. You know
and
what I
mean? I've actually heard them.
Right,
so.
100%. So you can.
Yeah. So what you're referencing is the HMS Curacao incident.
Mm-hmm.
So during World War II, the Queen Mary was requisitioned along with her sister ship to serve as a troop ship, mainly for two reasons: her size and speed. So during the war, Hitler had a bounty on any submarine skipper that could sink the Queen Mary, getting this Iron Cross with oak leaves award and 250 grand. That never happened. So the Queen Mary, to evade these German U-boats in the seas, and she sailed pretty much everywhere, she had to go in these zigzag motions. And on October 2nd, 1942, it was around 2:00 p.m., no clouds, perfect visibility for both Commodore Illingworth on the Queen Mary and then Captain Boutwood on the Curacao. There was a miscalculation. The compass was off by a couple of degrees. So what ended up happening is the ships were kept separating. And then because of that 2-degree difference, I think it was, I forget exactly what it was. I have it in the book, but there was this miscalculation. And so what ended up happening around 2:10 p.m. is the Queen Mary, while zigzagging in this number 8 zigzag, the Queen Mary ended up hitting and slicing through the Curacao. So over 300 of its sailors perished. I actually, in my book, RMS Queen Mary, Voices from Her Voyages, I have, I think, 2 eyewitness accounts from British sailors on board the Curacao that witnessed it. They survived. But these men, sadly, the 300 plus men that didn't survive, either died by being burned, fire, or absolutely, and all 3 of these are tragic, and then the third one tragically being sucked underneath the Queen Mary and dismembered by her propellers. So very, very tragic situation. And then it ended up being where I think the Curacao was 1/3 at fault, or no, 2/3 at fault, and the Queen Mary was 1/3 at fault. But again, it was just a huge mistake. But I think the Curacao sunk in around 5 minutes. And what's interesting too is that I think it was the aft end of the Curacao had a bunch of explosives. If the Queen Mary had hit that portion, she would have received more damage, most likely. So her bow, that section of the bow, she had to go in dry dock and get it repaired. But there are residual I think it's residual anyways, claims of people, including myself. I've been down in our deck forward and the forward cargo hold areas, and I've actually heard the sounds of explosions. I've heard phantom men screaming, and there have been many, many, many people that have experienced this. So I think there's definitely something there. And when you get into these psychic or energy imprints, it's usually from very violent types of situations or tragic deaths.
Something tragic,
yeah. So but yeah, it was a tragedy. And what's sad is that Navy orders strict Navy orders for the Queen Mary never to stop. So Captain Illingworth pondered, do I stop the ship and risk the lives of like 15,000 people? Or do I continue going? He had to continue going, and then sailor servicemen on the Queen Mary would throw out life preservers. But how tragic for that, for all those witnesses. So
oh my gosh, wow, how about that, guys? I only had limited understanding of that occurrence. I mean, for one, missing the explosives, wow, that's ridiculous. Right? Sounds like it could have turned out a lot worse. And then that decision, as you said, to either stop or help, your countrymen, or put these people at risk and keep going. I wasn't even aware that was the decision the captain had to make. So that's heavy. That's heavy as well.
Yep. So.
It really adds on to the whole tragedy of the event as well, and ties in with, as you were saying earlier, Nicole, about the ship even being sentient. Was it meant to survive?
Press on.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think there's something, you're onto something there. And I actually did an EVP session once, and I intuitively felt that there was a soldier there. At first I thought it was someone aboard the Queen Mary, but then I was like, wow, I think this might be the Curacao. So I started asking questions, and it's a very faint EVP, but if with headphones you can absolutely make it out. And I said, are you someone from the Curacao or the Queen Mary? And then I heard two faint answers, Queen Mary and then Curacao. But later I was asking questions about the Curacao incident, and there was a response from what sounded like a young male, and he said, I'm forgetting exactly what was said, but he basically said verbatim, I'm forgetting without referencing the EVP, but it was something like, I tried to steer the ship away. Whoa. So, I mean, that's wow.
Yeah. So, no, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Very.
Since you brought up EVPs there, I want to get I have a couple follow-up questions. I want to get your opinion on, I've heard these stories or reports of hearing the EVPs on the Queen Mary, and then going leaving the recording equipment on, and going back to the car and driving out a bit home, and still picking up some follow-up EVPs even after leaving 20-30 minutes away from the location, and it kind of drifting off. Have you heard anything similar, or do you have any opinion on that?
I have not captured anything like that with me. I haven't really tried that. I have. Now, one thing I've heard, especially during the pandemic, which is interesting, and this is from people that I know. I have a core group of friends, and we're just like Queen Mary enthusiasts. And a lot of us had these weird, intuitive dreams during the pandemic where we dream about the Queen Mary. And of course, the ship was closed. But so that was interesting. But but I haven't really had an experience with capturing anything of that nature. So
a broader question, not necessarily on the Queen Mary, but how about just any occurrence of going to a so-called haunted site and then having follow-up EVPs or follow-up occurrences after, this, what I'm alluding to. People constantly have this concern of if I go ghost hunting or paranormal investigating, I'm going to get followed home. Do you just have any opinion on that overall?
Well, I'm going to say this. And this is my belief. Some people won't agree with me, and that's fine. I've actually never been harmed. I've never had anything, try to threaten me. So I think when you go in with a positive attitude,
sure.
And you go in with that golden rule in mind, and you're going to treat them like how you want to be treated, that definitely helps. So I think that will help. But I mean, I have heard of people saying, oh yeah, something followed me home, whether it was just they were thinking that versus something really did. That's a different story. But if you're responsible, and you're not provoking, and you're not, doing crazy stuff, that's going to lessen the chance. And you can always say, if you're uncomfortable, you can always say when you're leaving a site, it's been great to communicate with you, but please stay here. I know that sounds weird, but people have done that.
It's a formality. I've heard that, of course.
Could I ask a follow-on question based on that, I'd like to hear your opinion on this, Nicole. I interviewed a band called The Railway from New Jersey several weeks ago on my own channel, a hard rock band, and I think it was the bassist I was talking to, and he told me he went to this house to film their music video, and something really terrible had happened there. The mafia had killed some poor guy, and I'll just say, then done not very nice things to him, as polite as I can put it. And he said the house, had that feeling, atmosphere. Said it was incredibly creepy and scary. He said once they'd filmed the video, that was it. They left, but there was, I think, possibly a paranormal investigator or of that nature with them at the time, and he advised them when they were leaving the property to leave, I think, was it with the backs turned, like backwards out of the house? And said that would something like that would lessen the chances of something following them. So with me having no knowledge on pretty much on how you go about respecting spirits, energies in these places, I'm guessing from your action already, that's not the usual method of doing that. I just wondered, well, would that work? You know, leaving a house like, would that make any difference?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, because every location is so different. You know, it's just it's you know, and it brings me to a point here with the paranormal, and being that it's so infused in our society. You know, Hollywood's been Hollywoodized, mass media. There's so many people wanting to get into the field. It's almost now we're at a point where we have to sift through what's authentically paranormal. What I mean by that is what's paranormal activity by itself without us influencing it, causing it, bias, without the suggestibility and all that
outside influence,
right? And then versus so sifting through that versus sifting through, okay, is this a false haunting? Is it a forced haunting? Is it something that people have caused? Is it like a psychokinetic creation? Is it a tulpa? Is it something like this? So it's made it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, we've seen the same happen with the whole UFO phenomenon, even ancient aliens, how that's got commercialized as well. And they always, I can see how they do it for ratings sometimes for the comedy factor, but they sometimes they'll never show you the best kind of example or candidates. Like, we'll put the crazy person on there, make everyone laugh, and then of course that gets the whole scene a bad reputation through that. But
right. So.
Okay, so coming back to what you referred to earlier with the AM FM switching, and again, I'm far from an expert, guys. This is why Nicole's on. Is that the same process as the spirit box, or was that a separate device that you were
there? So there's different types of devices that can do that. That can scan AM and FM, scan very high frequency. The thought here is that the frequency of the fast scanning can be conducive to energies coming through. It's like a frequency thing. So maybe it helps them to formulate words and phrases. But again, you have to you have to tune yourself to it. Now there are certain gadgets where you can hook up your PSB7 or PSB11 spirit box and it cuts out the static. But, and that may be worthwhile to experiment with. I've done that as well, but I think the static helps it in a way. But, you have to look through those words and phrases that are like really clear. You're not like, audio matrixing, listening to it hundreds of times and hearing all kinds of different things. So is it really clear? Is it historically relevant? Is there context to it? Things like that. So that's what we look for. But there's also ITC devices like the Ovilus that will have different modes, dictionary mode, phonetic mode, for example, and it will spew out different words. Now, I don't trust using that by itself, really. But there have been situations where maybe you get an EVP or you hear a disembodied voice that matches what the Ovilus is saying. Okay, well, maybe, right? So I actually like ITC, and you have to be responsible with it. But and again, it depends on the location too.
I mean, again, like us all, I've heard watching this kind of content on YouTube, etc., or TV, wherever, quality differs wherever you're looking. But I've heard ones that are like really good, like, okay, that was crystal clear. They answered the direct question, as you're saying. And then I've heard ones where it's like, I have no idea what that was, and depending on who the host of whatever program you're watching is, they'll be like, hey, they just said, and they'll, like, they just answered my question, and they'll act like it was like super, I get people got to make content for sake of content creation, right? But they'll act like it was this super clear, and I'm like, that was a complete jumbo mess to me. I didn't hear any clear syllables from that interview. So again, super clear ones, as we said, that are relevant to the context, as you said, to ones that are just like, that's unintelligible. You cannot understand.
I know it. And sometimes people, you can't, here's the thing. You know how many times I've been emailed, whether it's a picture, usually it's a picture or a video. Mm-hmm. Oh yes, can you tell me what's in this picture? I think this is what's going on. And I will write back saying, okay, well, first of all, I'm at a downside because I wasn't there at the time this was captured. I wasn't at the location. I wasn't able to see the reflective surfaces, the lighting situation. Right. So I'm going to say I'm already at a disadvantage. So going just by the four corners of what you've sent me, this is what I think. And I've had so many people like write back if it's something that, and these are people that are 100% convinced that what they have is the paranormal and nothing else can convince them otherwise, but yet they email paranormal investigators to get their opinion. And I'll say, based on just this photo or video, here's what I think is going on. And if it differs from their opinion, they get all bent out of shape. It's like, well, why did you email? Why did you?
They want a definitive. Yes, it isn't your job to green light whatever low resolution pixelated blog they sent to you. It's more of, you're the expert and you're going to analyze it for them and you're going to get the answer based on data.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like
how these things go.
I don't want to be negative, but I mean, it's nutty.
It happens. It's part of the trade.
And you know what? TV's done this. I think. The Hollywood eyes. It's created this, and there's just people that will just believe. And you can totally tell that it's maybe a reflection or something else, or it's like the ghost phone apps, like the iPhone, Android ghost images. I can't tell you how many times people have sent me pictures with, and I'm like, no.
That's a Snapchat filter. Dial it
down. Exactly. Oh man.
This is a perfect excuse for me to ask you a question on the paranormal and technology, and I wondered if you'd investigated any cases such as these or what your opinion was on it. And that's when people have said they've had email messages from those who have passed on. For example, the common message which is usually reported is it's just these simple words such as yes, it is you, or yes, it was me. It's always that statement, the report. So do you think that there's anything in that at all? Have you ever looked at anything like that?
I want to make sure that I understand your question completely. So just ask me again. I'm sorry.
Hello,
two wires weren't connecting right now in my brain. Hello. Oh my God.
You only knew that was the story of me and Gaz's life. So he's referring to electronic correspondence from someone who could have such as text or email that could have after the fact that they have passed on.
Oh my gosh, coming through. And email and text. I know it's random, but
I've had vaguely heard of.
I've not. Yeah, I have too, but I haven't talked or met with anyone that has had that type of experience where they got a text or anything like that. Now I've heard situations where, and this has happened with me too, with my grandmother, where a relative will die and then they'll get a phone call and it's just static on the other end. But that phone call comes at the time that person died. I've heard that.
Sure.
That's happened to me, but gosh, and emails. I mean, maybe it's possible. I don't know. That's far out there, but
or even phone calls from the person's number or voicemails. I've heard similar things like that as well, kind of along the same category, I suppose.
I mean, synchronicity falls into it too. So you may say you don't even get maybe a direct text message, but maybe you're thinking about your departed loved one, and then something about them, maybe a song on the radio or something like that comes up, and then it's
absolutely,
I
had Gaz used to do cross genre music radio show, audio show back in the day, and best friend of myself and my other best friend Mac passed away, and for a while my phone was I don't even think it was Spotify. I think it was the actual music files on my phone. It was just starting up and playing my friend's music, like my phone would, and I'm like, hey, I'm listening to my man, and my phone would just go off and play his song, and I was like, yeah, dude, I'll listen to your stuff right now, just randomly, you know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, again, it's a cell phone, so who's to say cell phone apps don't tweak? We all know they do, but it was just interesting. It happened to be my personal friend and his music, and just at random times, and I just let it play. Of course, I just let it play. I'm like, yeah, do your thing, man.
Yeah, that's synchronicity right there.
That's my boy.
I love it.
Yeah. I was just curious with that because I actually did have experience of that with an email.
Really?
You remember this, Rob? Because it was at the time you were presenting that show, and I actually told you both about it. And at first I only went to a few people around me because the immediate thought you think are people going to think I'm crazy, you know.
I don't.
And Ross, it was a friend of Angelica's who used to come on the show way back in the day, Vanessa, and she sadly passed. She used to be a French-Canadian fashion model. And I did a tribute show to her where I played lots of songs, gave her a shout, and, you know, everything like that. And as soon as that show was done, I just got an email which just said, yes, it was you. And I think I got 2 of them. And the first thing I did was contact Angelica and her husband, Etienne. And I said, look, this isn't I'm not trolling, nothing like that.
Right.
Now, weren't they in tune with the paranormal, as memory serves me?
Yeah, Angelica's into all of that.
Wow. Yeah. That makes it even more profound right there.
And I sent them copies of the emails, screenshotted it, said, look, here you go. And the reason I gave her a shout, I was an undergraduate at the time, and I hadn't talked with her for quite a while, and when I found out she'd passed, I felt really guilty that I hadn't kept in touch with her as much, and it really did upset me a lot. So I asked Angelica and her husband Eddie, and I said, look, can I do this show to give her a shout, pay tribute, you know? And I did that, and after I did it, this happened, and you know, I told Angelica, she got in touch with her husband, said, no, he's the only one who has access to her social media, her emails, nobody else. Remember at the time I'm telling Ross and Mac about it.
Gosh.
And Angelica just said, just accept it as she's letting you know that she's okay and it's all right. She understands. And since that time, I read some things about people getting emails or texts like this. And I'm quite a private person with things like that. I have had 1 or 2 other things happen after my dad passed. This is going to sound crazy, but people don't like spiders. Well, I had a Spider-Man figure, not the one in the background, a very small one, on a shelf, never ever moved. And when my dad passed with COVID, I just went obsessed with training, non-stop training, about 6-8 hours a day. And when I got up and there wasn't any windows open or anything on the night before for this to happen. And I've still got the picture on my phone of it. Actually, Ross has seen it. And the next day, when I got up, my dad, I think it must have been my dad. That's my belief. This small Spider-Man figure was on the floor, like in a press-up position. And I feel was that my dad watching me going, sure.
See, that's meaningful. That's like very, very, very meaningful. And I think a lot of us have had those types of experiences, like with departed loved ones, just synchronous stuff. Like for me, it's the numbers 444 a lot. My grandmother died at about 4:44, 4:45 a.m. And then one of my cats passed years later, of course, 4:44, 4:45 p.m. So, and I see those numbers a lot, or songs, for example. So, but with the 2 emails that you got, did you look at the time at when they were sent and if those numbers meant anything to her or even you?
I did. Do you know, I didn't think to do that. They came just a few minutes, I think, after the show. And the first thing I did was contact Angelica and say, look, you know, and I sent her copies of it. And she said, right, I'm going to call Etienne and I'm going to email him as well. And she did. And she got back to me as fast as possible and said, no, he was the only one who had access to her emails, the social media, nobody else. And
I'd go back and see if at the time it was sent, to see if like any the number sequence would meant anything to her family, or even you. Because you never know, you may find something interesting there. So.
I agree. Yeah, I don't. So I know you've told similar stories of being contacted, Nicole, and this is kind of my one, I suppose. I'm going to preface with it. It was a dream, so dreams are dreams, right? But I'll set it up on what made this one different, and this is literally the only time that. Well, there's one other thing that's similar, but not a dream, more of a feeling. But this one is pretty clear cut. So a friend of mine passed away, Nick. I believe you knew who he was, Gaz. He did some history documentaries about Romania. A good friend of mine, he passed away hiking off a mountain, and he got lost on the trail, fell off the mountain in Europe. But he was a very active guy, very active outdoorsman, active in history and documentary filmmaking. And so it was just a college friend of mine. We all had a big group of friends, and he's one of my best friends. So I had this dream. His name was Nick. I had this dream that Nick came to me, and I think I was sitting down. He was standing up talking to me, but it was the absolute image of 100% perfect likeness, looked exactly like him. It was his voice, absolutely his voice. You know what I mean? You never forget what your friend's voice sounds like, regardless if it's past or present, right? And he's talking to me, and he basically, I won't say apologized to me, but he put me at ease with the situation. He's like, hey, this happened. I just want you to know, Ross, I'm at peace with it. I just want everybody else to be at peace with it too. And so I woke up with that super peaceful feel. I wouldn't say I was super broken up about it, but who likes losing a friend, especially someone you've known for a long time like that. But it was always in the back of my mind subliminally. I wasn't very externally about it, but so then he just came to me, delivered that message, and it quite literally lifted the feeling off my shoulders. That morning I woke up, it was gone, and that feeling of missing him being gone never returned again. It's just that one conversation he had with me.
That's in my opinion a true dream visitation. It's not like a sleep paralysis. It's not just a regular dream where we're processing our subconscious and whatnot. This was a dream visitation, and I just talked about this in a presentation I did yesterday. And it's when you have these sorts of dreams, you will wake up feeling exactly what you described. You will have that
impression,
just that very profound sense or whatever impression it is. You'll be at full peace, and so that's what I believe.
Again, no expert, no background like yours, but as you said, I interpreted it as a dream visitation just because, dude, that was him. I saw him. Without a doubt, it was his voice. Of course, dreams are dreams, right? As I started, they go both ways. But when you clearly see your friend, they're clearly talking to you in their voice. And it was a very short message, It's just kind of when you have, you have multiple dreams, and it just kind of is that one chapter, it kind of blessed over. But I woke up and I remembered every word. You know what I mean?
That too.
Always with every dream. So
I
remembered his face. Even little details, it was kind of like a smoky room, like a movie or whatever, where you can't really, it's just like the spotlight's on us and you can't see anything around it. It's kind of like an interrogation where the light's on me and I'm at the table, but he's standing there talking to me. And it was years back, and I can remember almost every detail.
That is amazing. Cherish those. If you got anyone in chat too, if you've had a dream visitation, you'll be able to know that it's a different type of dream.
So, it's not like one of those, you sleep for 8 hours or 10 hours and it's just whatever, you're on coffee and it's a jumbled mess and you're I can't remember. I can't remember, whatever, maybe had too many beers in my case and you can't remember anything. It was the complete opposite. I remembered I remembered every detail, you know what I mean? So it was just again, I can't say I can extrapolate much from it, but that's really the only time something like that happens. I don't have any other personal ghost stories, but I do have an epic one about my brother. If you guys care to hear it, or
sure, man.
If you guys care to hear it, yes.
I think you've heard it, guys. This is cool, Nicole, because me and my brother are opposites, right? He's a finance guy, professional dude, no nonsense guy. I'm the, aliens, UFO, you know what I mean? I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens guy of the family. So, you know what I mean? Just two opposite spectrums. So it's so funny that it would happen to him. Whereas if it happened to me, I've been totally that was the best day of my life.
I love it.
To him, and he's like, dude, that was the worst. But he was at a very young age. I think you've heard this one, guys. So I think he was under 10. I'm from this small, very small town. I think less than 10,000 people when my parents moved there, Nicole, in southern New Hampshire, right on the Massachusetts border, formerly Massachusetts, very revolutionary area, heavy residual area. So my brother's staying at his friend's house in our town, very old house. So he's sitting there eating dinner with my friend and his mom. It's not a very long story, but I think everybody will appreciate it. So she's telling him about this presence in the house, this spirit. He's probably at an age too young to understand the subject matter of the conversation they're having, but his friend Aaron has told him like it goes down all the time. Like he saw stuff. So he lives there. So he's more like maybe a little bit more like, in tune with the environment, in tune with the situation. My brother's just a guest a young kid trying to figure out what's going on in this house. And you have your friend's mom explaining it to you. So you can see how, okay, like you're just a kid. Like, what are you telling me? You know what I mean? Like you're telling me there's this other thing going on in your house. So they're sitting there and eating dinner, and the cabinets start opening by themselves.
Oh.
So she gets up, she closes it, sits down, and it opens by itself. So now you're getting to a point where it's like, when you see like the fake poltergeist videos on YouTube and stuff with the utensils exploding out of the kitchen, and they just did that with strings, they edited out. We're talking about early 90s or it could have even, no, I'm pretty sure it's early 90s. It could have been late 80s, but I'm pretty sure it's early 90s. So that kind of CGI technology just didn't really exist at the time, guys. I mean, you're talking about people in the room clearly observing what's going on. While that's happening, the answering machine, I know you remember answering machines, Nicole, for the Gen Zers on the audience in the chat. There used to be a thing called answering machines.
Yeah, remember those?
Actual little mini cassette tapes in them. So the answering machine is going on and off while the cabinets are opening. And if I haven't butchered anything yet, I believe the utensil drawers are opening as well with the utensils shaking. So that's a lot of stuff to go on in one room. And I think she was explaining to my brother the situation right as this stuff, started happening, as if the presence was listening. So my brother got bugged out. He started, I don't blame him because I don't know what I would have done, but he started like shaking, eating his food. He tried to, no bad of my brother. That's my man. He's done shows with me and Gaz. We do movie reviews. He tried to run out the door, the front door of the house. So she grabbed him and pulled him back in and let him know, like, hey, it's not some evil, like malevolent thing, trying to put him at ease. And I think that eventually worked. He slowly started to understand we're dealing with more than like what's going on in the room. His friend said that he had seen the apparition in the basement and had like thrown a pillow at it or whatever. Again, we're talking about like 10-year-old kids.
Oh my God.
I don't know how they're gonna react in this situation. But from what I remember, from what like Mike and Aaron told me, he said like the guy gave him like his name and like the date. So that could have either been like the date he was born or maybe the date he died, one of those. And I believe it was like 1800. So again, we're talking about, small, very old houses in southern New Hampshire, right around the Revolutionary era. So, I mean, I totally believe it. And again, my brother's not like one of these like, hey, like watch a lot of that kind of like ghost TV. He's totally normal, down to earth, finance guy. He just happens to have that, and that when you're dealing with these old kind of neighborhoods. And again, as we started, Nicole was talking about some of the private residences around San Diego. You do get a lot of these types of stuff. So that's really like the big one that I know of in my hometown. I doubt that's the only one, but again, in the early 90s, as Gaz was saying, people were probably not quite as vocal about telling these types of stories because who's going to believe that?
Family in that house, or were there other families that lived there before you?
Good question. I think
that'd be cool. It's interesting to see.
Yeah, it was my brother's friend's house. I think they were just renting it, and I think it was just like one of the older houses in my hometown. Because again, there was 1700s, 1800s construction. So that again, I totally believe it, because how are you going to fake opening cabinets with your friend's mom standing there and opening drawers and then set the answering machine off at the same time, all in the same moment? It's
that's
just a lot.
You know what? That's so interesting too. I mean, a lot of these like psychokinetic, like poltergeist types of incidences, which you describe, of things like, moving by themselves, a lot of it too can be not even a ghost. It could be like a prepubescent teen or someone that's just going through a lot of emotional turmoil. And that's the theory. That they're able to somehow cause all these events. I don't know.
Psychokinetic energy. It's just
right.
My big issue. I always tell that one because my big issue is like when you watch those fake poltergeists on YouTube, they're obnoxious.
Oh God,
like,
I know.
Hey, this is my kitchen, and the refrigerator explodes, and every single drink blasts all over the ceiling. It's like, give me a break. There's no way all of those things would explode in 1 second while your camera's on.
Right? And I so want to comment and like say, okay, this is how you did it. But
yeah,
no,
what are you doing? For Mythbusters, Nicole can be the paranormal Mythbuster.
I know. Right?
Yeah. That's the one I tell. Like if someone tells me, like, hey, dude, you got to watch this YouTube video, and I'm like, okay, for one, this is kind of ridiculous. I was like, but I'll tell you a real story from my hometown. I know for a fact this one is real. You know what I mean? So.
That's a cool story. I love hearing stories like this.
It was always funny because I've always been the paranormal guy, the cryptid guy, the UFO guy in my family. And then like my brother goes over to his friend's house and that happens. Like you'd always see me watching Unsolved Mysteries. Like, dude, how do you sleep at night? And I'm like, sometimes pretty bugged out. You know what I mean?
That's
I go down the YouTube rabbit hole a lot. Yeah, I'll be on something, and then like 2 hours later, I'm like way down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I know.
Yeah.
Okay,
so.
I was just going to say that's usually the case. It always happens to someone who's the polar opposite in thinking. And like you were saying earlier, Nicole, when anything that's had a lot of tragedy or a lot of people come through, and you've got that history there. That's when we get a lot of reports of these things happening. There was another conversation myself and Ross have had many times, and this is going back. It was on one of the shows that Ross has been mentioning we were watching, and it was these two guys who were on a beach, I think down south here, and they had metal detectors, and they were looking for whatever, and said they heard the sound of horses coming towards them. And it was getting louder and louder and louder, and just. And when they looked up, and I thought, well, if you think about it, where we are with our modern mindset now, and if you're on that beach, and I'm guessing this was maybe the early hours of the morning, just kind of as sun is rising, I'm guessing, or it could have been even late at night. I can't remember the time. I know it was quiet. And they said, and these horses, it was getting louder and louder, the galloping. And when they looked up, here's Roman cavalry galloping towards them, some Roman soldiers, and the Romans looked up, only saw these guys, and then the next time, then that was it, they were gone. And they said they were really freaked out for that second. And I thought, well, I like Ross, very limited understanding of this, not an expert, but that says to me, in my very basic interpretation of it, that's some different kind of paranormal activity, whereas it's as if that isn't a memory replay, or as if it's some kind of window that's opened up to that time period. They're on patrol, probably chasing my ancestors who've been a bit naughty or whatever.
That's
the
time slip theory. It's the of course Nicole knows the residual versus the actual historical echo of those time slips.
That's what it sounds like. And I did a presentation last weekend at Escondido Public Library, and one of the librarians there was saying like how he was once at the Hotel Del, and there's one of the famous stories. I'm sure you've heard of this, Ross, is Kate Morgan, right? Yep. So he was there one night.
400 something. Do you know the exact?
Yeah, the room changed.
404
now
something
it's a 4-digit room number now. Off the top of my head, I can't remember it, but. So he was there one night with his wife, and he was walking down. I don't know what floor he was on, but probably I think he said like the third. And he was walking down one of the hallways, and he said he passed by this lady who was like wearing like a whitish dress. She had darker hair. He said she was very attractive, and he walked by her, and he was like, "Gosh, I kind of thought she was rude because she was just looking at me and she didn't say anything." And I said, "You know what? She didn't know you were there." So it's probably like maybe it was a residual type of thing, right? Yeah. Or maybe if she did see you, she couldn't talk,
vocalize. It's like a window that you can't communicate through.
I
love that. I was hoping you would bring up the Hotel Del. I so what people go and try to stay in the room. I so want to do that, much like people. Lizzie Borden's house is a bed and breakfast now. Did you know that?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I did read that.
Really?
I did read that. Oh my!
It's a big That's I always kind of want to do that one. Hotel Del, I definitely do. Lizzie Borden, I want to, but I also feel paranoid about that one for obvious reasons. Gaz, I believe there was more to that time slip story. Didn't they say that they were throwing a net on their target, and the dude said like they felt if the net would have got him, that they felt like they would have got sucked in with the
you're right. I know it was a long time. I know it was many years ago we had that conversation, but you're right. And I just thought
he was saying they kind of ran or they dodged it or whatever, and he felt like if the net got him, he would have got pulled in. You know what I mean?
That's insane. Oh my gosh.
But it's like those stories we've heard in Boston, what you've told me, where there's been a guy in a traffic jam and somebody's asked for directions and you've naturally responded, oh yeah, take the street down here and whatever. And then he's realized it's a revolutionary soldier.
I was just going to bring that one up. So right, what Gaz was saying about the Romans, the big thing in Lexington is conquered is people have pulled up to a stop sign and dudes have rolled up to them next on horseback, like on the way to the battle. And you know what I mean? With the battle, it was about 300 years ago. They're like, which way to Lexington to Concord? And they're like, dude, Lexington's up. And then he realized like that guy is dressed from the Revolution, you know, as they cruise off on their horse.
Insane.
So
can you imagine that?
That would be my dream to see one of those residuals from the
I would love to experience that. Oh my gosh.
And it's there's a couple inns that have, you know, as we were saying before, that have soldiers at them as well. I don't know. I think we hit everything. Is there anything we missed, Nicole?
Greg did have
no, this was an amazing show, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about all this.
You're very welcome. We can. Well, we always are off air anyway. We could talk about this stuff for absolutely hours and hours.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting. Greg did have a question. Sorry, so let me get this. I'm going to ask this the best I can because I'm not sure in the concepts, context. So, are you meaning Nicole's belief here? He said.
Oh yeah, I think I was on, guys.
Did you ask that one?
Unless Nicole cares to.
I'm one of those that likes to leave the paranormal and religion separately.
Yeah,
so I'm just going to leave it at that for that.
A good answer. So. Yeah,
I tend to do that as well.
Everybody's got their own beliefs, but this was mostly for Nicole to get. Let's plug Nicole's books one more time. Get them on Amazon. The San Diego Hauntings of San Diego Hauntings.
San Diego's Most Haunted,
San Diego's Most Haunted, and then the Queen Mary stuff, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you want me to say them? I mean, they're all. I mean, you can. They're all on my website.
Yeah, just what's the best way? Website or just search Nicole Strickland on Amazon.
Yeah, I have my Amazon page too. I'm on Amazon, and then one of my Queen Mary books, The Haunted Queen of the Seas. You want the newer edition, so it's you'll be able to tell from the older edition. But the Queen Mary ones are sold aboard the ship actually, but you can get all my books Amazon, like Barnes and Noble. I just came out with the Afterlife Chronicles. You can get that on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, whatnot. So
Excellent.
Good stuff.
And I thought one thing we forgot to mention for the start, guys, we are multicast streaming, guys, for our first time on PXF Fed Up. So go get Gaz's link below. The Fed Up channel, subscribe there, as well as Gaz's Twitch Fed Up Vodcast, and then I also have Nicole's channel linked below. So
that's you guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Really, really good shows here. Great discussion. So
greatly appreciate it. And then your show as well, Nicole. Make sure you play.
So my friend Todd Bates and I, we co-host Haunted Voices Radio. So that's on hiatus right now. And then I had a show called The Afterlife Chronicles. It's on hiatus, but I'm actually revamping it. So it's going to be a new show, which I'll probably debut end of December, early January. So I'll let you all know when that debuts and stuff. So I'm still working on it. But the actual Afterlife Chronicles theme and talking to paranormal investigators and afterlife researchers, that will be interweaved within the new show. So it's fun. Gosh, doing podcasting and radio is a lot a
It is. It's the talking to people, isn't it? That interactivity and all the different cultures.
I love it. Good stuff.
Greatly appreciate you being our first guest of the Paranormal Files Volume 1.
You'll have to come out with us, Ross.
Oh, absolutely. I'm down. I'm always down. Come back anytime if you have other guests that you think would be a good fit for the series too. We're always looking for people. So
I can actually, if you want me to, you can contact Lon if you want, but if not, I can totally contact him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's fun. Lon's a great guy. He's really fun.
He seemed to know his stuff. I liked what he was getting to with cryptids, and I just saw myself and Gas nerding with him on cryptids. So I was like, let me calm down. I'll schedule the show.
Yep.
Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for the show. Thank you very much, Nicole. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us, Nicole. It's been fantastic.
Thank you, guys. Have a good Halloween weekend, too.
You
Have
too.
A good evening. Happy Halloween.
You too. Happy Halloween.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Have a good
Peace
one.
out.
Bye. Boom. There it goes. PXF Paranormal Files. Volume 1 is back. Author Nicole Strickland. Go get her on Twitter, Instagram, X, Instagram, Facebook. She also has the Paranormal Group Facebook pages, her website, Amazon. Go get that out. That's super cool that her books are sold on the Queen Mary as well. Like, subscribe, share. Zodiac Files episode 4 is coming soon. What am I missing, guys? Go get the comic on Amazon. Dark Rift Volume 1, Escape from Earth.
Yeah, and tomorrow we are back multi-streaming again, 5 p.m. Eastern, with a long-term friend of ours who used to come on our old radio shows, which myself and Ross used to do. Lauren, awesome horror guy, horror expert. For the music heads out there, he did a DVD back in the day called Pennsylvania Hardcore, which looked at hardcore from the tri-state area. So a guy who's been in pretty much every scene going, so it should be a super interesting show. We will be talking about Dark Military 2 will be certainly one of the areas that we're focusing on. Lauren's new movie, so you definitely want to catch that one, 5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow on both channels.
Check out Dark Military, free on Tubi. It was on Amazon and everything else. I think you can find it most places. And then Dark Military Rogue is on Average Superstar TV. You can find that in our community tab where I drop Lauren's links. Lauren's the man. Follow him on social media. Follow Nicole and check out all her links. Great research there. That does it for our Halloween Paranormal Epic. We are out. Like, sub, share. Get those subs up, guys. We're going to have subscriber-only lives coming soon, followed by memberships and many more. Shout out to Greg, Lazarus.
Thanks, Greg.
Everybody who came through. Appreciate all you guys. Like, sub, share. We are out.
Peace out, y'all, and thanks again.